standards. I apologize. I know you come here with a lot of expertise and high standards, and I expect that the board and administration will give you 100% support on what you are here to do. I cannot say I'm thoroughly pleased. We require a state monitor, but in the same breath I will say I think you're here to give a department some consistency that has just failed. Since our business administrator of 30 years had retired, it's been interim after interim. We know we need to take a new direction. I think the first right step is when we vacated the office. The first question I asked you, I was very pleased, what are we going to do for business administrator? And I was very glad to hear you say that you'll be interviewing to put an interim into place. So I'm very happy for that. Not the best circumstance, but I think it's going to turn out well for this district. Mr. D'Elia, thank you for that presentation. I actually called for that presentation through the superintendent's office, specifically after last week's meeting, when a member of the public insinuated that those monies were missing and unaccounted for, and even worse than that, there's been a public rumor going around that someone in specific was skimming the money. Certainly unfair to the department and all the people who handle those monies. I know, Tom, you hold your staff and yourself to a high level of standard, so I'm very displeased that we were able to dispel some of those myths this evening. Which brings me to the audit report. If this was on the audit report as a flag, and you could clearly see the process we had, how many other things are in the audit report that we were in compliance with because of, excuse me, how many other things were in the audit report that we have procedure for, that were done correctly? Obviously, you know, the correct sharing of information wasn't there, and there was some mismanagement somewhere along the line. I want to also respond to a public comment from the budget hearing. I believe it was Mr. Mattingly who pointed out line item administration cost. And he said that they were up 200% from the prior year, and that certainly sparked my attention, and did a little research. The first thing I'd say is this is probably a convoluted figure, because the year prior to that was the year of the state cuts from the governor's office. And I actually remember we got those numbers in at the 11th hour. We were literally in here waiting for the email from the state to see what our funding was, and to remedy the situation and not to lay off any teachers at the time. The then superintendent, Joseph Picardo, recommended that we cut most vice principals, all supervisors and department heads, and that brought the number way down. And then, of course, we restored some of those positions, and I think that's what caused the large increase. In addition to that, I did a little research on where we stack administratively with not only surrounding towns but the entire state. And it was said last meeting that we need to be lean with administrators. And to my surprise, Belleville School District is just about the leanest state when it comes to administrators. I mean, you are talking about every district, surrounding district and throughout the state has, 5 supervisors, sometime for different age groups, and those supervisors are in math, English, subject matter. Here in Belleville, we have 2. We have a special education supervisor because of our large number of special education students both in district and out. And we have one in the middle school that is, I believe the title is an academic supervisor, and that is state mandated and funded by Title I. So I just wanted to respond to Mr. Mattingly's comment because, like I said, the 200% certainly sparked my attention. You know, certainly not happy with the situation of the budget. Certainly don't want to sit here and make any excuses. The onus is on us. I mean, unfortunately, by the time the board was notified, it was too late for any remedy. You know, we are facing a deficit. The onus is on us. You know, making no excuses. I just want to point out some of the things off the top of my head, some costs that occurred last year that we weren't planning on. We had to place a superintendent on administrative leave, paid. Didn't want to do it, have to do it. I mean, your hands are tied. We had to pay for an interim. We had to pay for an interim director of special education. We had to pay for an interim director of curriculum when our director of curriculum was placed on leave. We had to pay for multiple business administrators. We had a lot of frivolous, I would say, lawsuits that certainly we didn't lose, but cost the district a lot of money. We had a lot of finance office cost. We had a lot of unfunded state mandates. Handle with care, Common Core, park testing, leasing and buying computers. Strange and Danielson software to analyze teacher improvement plans, anti-bullying laws, SGO, gifted and talented. I mean, I went through some of my agendas and the list goes on and on and on. These were unfunded state mandates that, you know, you're stuck with the bill. On top of that, we have 3 pages of state mandated training that was unfunded. Certainly not making any excuses for the position we are in now. The onus is on us, and I'm very glad to have you here, Mr. Egan. Certainly looking forward to having a business administrator in here with a little consistency, and I just want to move forward from this point. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Zagari. Mr. Kugler.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of the Budget Committee, Mr. Lombardi and myself, I would also like to thank Mr. Egan here. We have a long road ahead of us. As Mr. Zagari said, we're all not happy, but it definitely is a long process, and we are looking to get back to that financial stability and working together. And on behalf of the chairman of the Budget Committee, I would like the Budget Committee to be heavily involved in the cut process with administration as well, to make sure that we're fiscally sound and cut in areas that are needed to be cut and not negatively affect our children, which desperately need a quality and good education. Secondly, I'd like to thank Mr. D'Elia for his presentation, for bringing clarity on that so-called issue. As we know, there's approximately, 30 issues in there. Various of those issues could have been probably consolidated into a few. However, we were not present in that exit meeting where there's probably other controls within that whole process that need to be followed up, and communication process needs to be enhanced throughout the whole process, because how an audit issue makes it to the audit report without seeing the owner of that process is, you know what I mean? But that's another issue, and process we'll discuss with the superintendent and the business administrator to make sure that doesn't happen in the future. But there definitely needs to be cohesiveness between the whole group and administration and external auditors and internal auditors and the whole process. And thank you, Mr. President. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Kugler. Mr. Torres. Thank you, Mrs. Torres. Mr. Frida.
My 2 colleagues have stated everything perfectly, and I could only add just welcome, Mr. Egan. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Mr. Frida. Mrs. Lombardi.
Hi, I just want to bring up positive. I attended the choral concert last night. The children were outstanding. It was a great concert, and if you didn't make it this year, you should definitely try to go next year. A lot of talent in Belleville. Also want to keep the Nugent family in our thoughts and prayers. We lost a little girl in middle school, Easter week. And if we can keep them in mind, in addition to Sophia, who is downstairs right now, we have a fundraiser going on, who's fighting cancer. Welcome, Mr. Egan. I enjoyed our meeting yesterday, and we welcome you aboard. Look forward to working with you. I just want to reiterate a few things that you said in our meeting yesterday that struck me, and I think the public would like to hear as well. Our long-range goal, obviously, is to have fiscal health going forward. That's obvious. We need to put everything on the table and get past any hidden agendas. Number two. And third of all, we will improve transparency and communication. So I look forward to that. I know we will do. So thank you. That's all I have, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mrs. Lombardi.
A lot of class, Mr. Lombardi.
May I just say one more thing? We were literally 15 seconds ago notified by the Department of Education. We just received a $150,000 grant for technology.
Oh, fantastic. And I have no report tonight, thank you. Moving on, remarks by citizens. May I have a motion to open the public?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Joe Farnaro, please come to the podium, state your name, address, and group affiliation if appropriate, sir.
It's on, Joe.
Go ahead.
It's on.
Oh, okay, I'm
It's
sorry.
behind you, Joe.
First of all, what I'm hearing tonight is a few excuses. We have one of the board members absent 2 meetings in a row. I believe he should be here. You people give him an excuse, I don't know why. You got a gentleman over here that lost the election yesterday, he's here today. The other man's not. Does he have a good excuse? You don't even know, right?
Mr.
Mr.
Farnaro,
President?
the gentleman is excused.
Oh, you gave him an excuse.
I
Okay.
excuse him, thank you.
I've been hearing a lot of misuse of funds tonight, apologies. First of all, most of the money is supposed to go to the children and the teachers, and it hasn't been. You people have wasted so much funds, millions of dollars. And according to the report, what I read here, you have millions of dollars coming from the state, millions of dollars coming from the federal government, but the taxes in Belleville, most of it's high because of the schools. Now, I listened to the report in regards to athletics, and I believe the monies from the free markets went to the athletic, and I didn't hear that mentioned. Is that true, sir?
I'm sorry?
The free market funds goes to the athletic commission, committee?
Athletic department? No.
Yeah. Where does it go? Where does it go, Mr. President?
It goes to the athletic council, sir.
There you are. That's your department too, right?
No.
No? Anyway, for the last week, I'm glad this gentleman's here from the state. He should have been here 6, 7 months ago. Many jobs are hired by a private agency, one person. You gotta cut all this out. One man should be running the Board of Education. You people don't run the Board of Education. There's conflict of interest, misuse of funds. And there's many mistakes, sir. I like to meet with you private myself, and I'll give you a few. There's millions of dollars here. I'm a taxpayer 60 years. Some of these people on the board are newcomers in Belleville. But the point I want to make is, we, the people that are taxpayers, are suffering. And who's going to suffer are the tenants. Because I have a 2-family house, my taxes go up, my tenant's going to go up. And it's going too much and too high. There's a lot of frivolous things going on in the Board of Education that shouldn't be. I remember when I was a commissioner on Washington Avenue, up in the office, there was 6 employees. I don't want to injure any employee, I don't want to see layoffs, but if it has to come of the late hirees, if they have to go, they have to go. In the office, I'm sure you got over 20 employees. It didn't go up 100%, maybe 600%. Why? With the computer system today and everything else modern, we people shouldn't be paying the high taxes for school. We do have a good system. The teachers are fine, doing a hell of a good job. Some principals were forced out by politics, and you people on the board agreed. Why? Dedicated principals, teachers, you people are hurting. Why? I hope this gentleman straightens out the school system as it should be run. And technically, you people on the board should have your minds examined too for what you're doing. Thank you.
State your name, address, and affiliation if appropriate.
Jeff Mattingly, 56 Walnut. Through the chair, I'd like to address Mr. Zangari's remarks. Hello, testing? Does this, it doesn't, it can't hear anybody. Can I get a microphone? Yeah, I'd like to have it on the recording. Testing, testing. Makes noise, but when you're speaking to it, you don't get it. Doesn't start the process. That's service, thank you.
Holy cow.
Now we're on.
That's a first.
Now, please, if you would, restart the clock. Wow.
I'm not using the clock, Mr. Madden.
All right, that's wonderful. Thank you. All right, yeah, I got it. First, actually, to begin with, 2 hours ago on the Board of Ed website, this meeting was scheduled for 7 o'clock on the agenda. Now it says 6 o'clock. I'm sure that's going to preclude several speakers who would have liked to have been here and made their points.
Mr. Madden, I understand, I saw that too, I was very upset by it as well, sir. I thought the meeting was at 7 o'clock myself, I received an email correcting it, and spoke to the superintendent, the person that made the mistake.
Okay.
People that came late today.
Well, then, those who weren't able to sign in would like to speak. Are you going to open that option?
Since you made a mistake.
That's a fair, if we want to open it, if there are other people that would like to sign up, please, let me know now. By show of hands? By show of hands? Mr. Rico, somebody signed you in.
Is that the same John Rivera?
Well, at any rate, let me, well, you gotta stand back a few feet from this button.
I'm sorry, a show of hands again? Sir, you want to step up and you can sign in? You want to sign in, sir?
Why don't you put the paper over here on the table?
Cooperation?
Testing. That's pretty good. Thank you, Bill.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Aren't they great? Where's your cheeks?
Because the crowd by the door is coming over here. Do you think we could like push that closer since we're done and turn the camera on? Thank you.
I can't move the camera because I can't get it's towards getting Chef and Rivera in there. So just maybe like you stand right here.
Like, am I okay here or no?
Yeah.
Or do you want to go the other side?
No, you're good.
That's okay.
Perfect.
Sign up, John, sign up.
I can't remember the other side. I heard your wife was bitten.
She started tasting
All right.
she was bitten like 15 minutes.
I'm sorry. Can we get back to this? Mr. Mattingly?
Thank you. I wish I had known. I would have run home and changed first. But at any rate, maybe we can take this in order. Mr. D'Elia, I'd like to thank you for your presentation. It was very enlightening, and it seems like as though you keep good records. My question is, why hasn't the board supplied, why hasn't the athletics department supplied that information to the auditor for the past 3 years? And 4 years ago, they presented an audit amount for $2,980, I believe, when the year before was $14,800, $15,150 the year before that, and a running total going backward. Is there a...
Mr. Billy, if you can answer that, please.
I was never asked.
Can you tell me how long you've been...
4 years.
4 years.
You're not accommodating people.
4 years. Unfortunately, there's another... excuse me, I'm sorry. There is and I hope you would all support, but there's a Mr. and Mrs. Belleville contest being held in the auditorium tonight. I should hope that you would all support and go upstairs and donate a couple of dollars and see our kids put on a great show. That's the reason we're not in the auditorium tonight. Want it again? There's another school.
Just to address Mr. Mattingly's question, because I do have an answer readily available. I was never asked to supply such. This information, the process, the gate receipts are readily available. This was a very easy presentation for me, obviously because it's my job. So I was never asked by the auditor to produce any documentation, which was readily available.
The Board of Ed was. It's on the auditor's request that it was not supplied.
That may be, if that's the auditor's report, as I alluded to before, there may be they never asked. I don't even know how else to say it. The information, they would probably be looking in the wrong spot. They were looking in the board where it was in a high school account, as I explained in the presentation. It would have, believe me, caused me a lot less stress in this past week. This was a personal attack at me, my pride, and again, thanking the people that are here to support me because they know me as a stand-up guy. And I'm very transparent, and my door is always open.
So were you responsible 4 years ago for the $2,980?
That would be 4 years ago. I started in 2010. The only explanation that I could possibly offer for that is, as you see on the presentation, it's September of 2010. September 27th was the resolution. There might have been a miscalculation in the turnover of funds. But again, that is something that can be cleared up. We have record of all of that.
So you can go back and produce those records that were missing for the past 3 years?
They are all out of the high school activities account. Again, looking in the right place is the right answer.
So then you can produce them. Will you produce them?
I am not in charge of the activities account. the building principal is. I'm sure under an Oprah request, that information could be supplied. Unless you're not catching, I'm giving you the answer.
I got it. I just needed to hear it from you. Thank you for that. Do you know who chairs
By the way,
the
Mr. Madden, whoever signed you didn't put your address down.
56 Walnut? Will you do me that favor, in the sake of moving things along? Do you know who does chair the Athletics Advisory Council, who I assume you work with?
I am.
Absolutely.
I'm a sitting member, non-voting member. Mr. Pagano and I, as building principal, are members of the Athletic Advisory Council. We have not been a vote. We basically act as liaisons. I believe currently Mr. Yanussi is the chairperson.
My question is then, you said that you believe the flea market proceeds go directly to the advisory council,
That is my understanding.
and there should be some sort of record keeping of that as well then?
Yes.
Okay.
Through the Athletic Advisory Council.
Very good.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr. Delaney.
Okay, through the chair, Mr. Zangari, you mentioned my name more than a few times in the process of explaining the costs and expenses that have come to burden Belleville with a $3.8 million shortfall. You spoke to some of them, and my question is, or statement is, are you aware that in the past 4 years administrative costs have doubled?
That's something that needs to be looked at, and like I said, you know, we had a lot of unfortunate circumstances that were out of our control. You know, we had to place our superintendent on paid leave. Certainly we didn't want to, but that's the law. You can't put somebody out of work and not pay them.
One of those frivolous lawsuits came from there?
Well, no.
Okay, that wasn't a frivolous lawsuit then.
Well, the action of the board at the time was to place them on administrative leave. You need a superintendent. We had a...
No, you do, I understand. So then, the superintendent, you replaced him with Mr. Michael Vessa, who is now, of course, also...
He wasn't the superintendent.
I'm sorry, the administrator.
The interim superintendent was Dr. Feldman. She was the director.
Dr. Feldman, not Mrs. Feldman.
Yes. Was the
Doctor of
director-
hypnosis.
Was the...
I'm sorry, isn't that the case? Am I wrong? Okay, well, all right, thank you. I try to be correct in my facts. The audit suggested that the increase was 2,500%, not 250%. And the increases were shown in terms of dollars. If they're wrong, that I'd love to see that, pointed out to me by, in-depth, detailed investigation as to how things have gone up. You pointed to Title I monies. Are you aware that in the audit, the auditor's determination said that Title I and Title II monies were supplanted, moved to other areas that they were not intended to be in? So, these are issues that really are of great concern to the public, and I'm very thankful for the board and its reaction, because I've been attending meetings since December of last year, and I get almost no answers on any level to serious questions.
I disagree, Mr. Manning. You put through plenty of requests and got them.
I asked 20 and I get 1, and it's a softball. So, you know what, that's if you sense frustration on my part, that's where it comes from. And that's so. You speak to the requirement and what other districts surrounding us get and pay for, and I hear a lot in negotiations about parity. And parity is so how we've doubled administration costs. We seem to have been very well administrated those years ago, but now we seem to be suffering tremendously on the teaching side with sufficient funds going to their intended purposes, state and federal funds, and that the teachers have been speaking all year to the fact that their learning aids are broken and their budgets are frozen. And yet yesterday, it's my understanding that Mrs. Feldman authorized substitute pay so that teachers and administrators could go and work on a poll and work in an election process. And in fact,
the teachers and some of the paras and some of the secretaries have personal time, sir. They are allowed to take their personal time. if they request a personal day and they have it in advance and get it off, they can do whatever they want with that day.
Were substitutes deliberately told that they would be paid?
Delivery told that they would be
Yeah,
paid.
directive.
If there were
Directive.
teachers that requested a personal day off, sir, and we needed a substitute,
Yeah.
then I would assume that we would put a substitute in that. Wouldn't you, sir?
Yeah, I would, except that earlier in the year, it's my understanding that Dr. Feldman said that there were going to be no payments made for substitute teachers after
How can you
March
say that, sir?
25th.
We have teachers that call out sick every day. And we would have to use a substitute to teach that class.
If you wanted a personal
Sir,
day?
in order to be in compliance with the state, we would have to provide a substitute for that class. So I don't see where you're going with this.
It's good, you know, like you say, there's a lot of information that goes on, I think.
Yeah, there's a
I'll
lot of
leave that-
misinformation. Go right ahead, sir.
Well, we'll let the teachers direct that if they wish to. Title I's planted. You know, I'm very thankful to hear that we have now an announcement for $150,000 for computer aids, and you know, to be able to allow the technology department to hopefully fix some of the broken hardware. But I have a question. Why did the technology department purchase $20,150 worth of thumb drives from Morange Printing, a printing company whose all other receipts are for printing and have nothing to do with technology, hardware, like that would be, however portable, and that it happens to be the place that I understand of Mr. Joe Longo's employment? Could I direct that to Mr. Frieda holding the chair?
Mr. Frieda is the chairman of the IT. He has nothing to do with purchasing. That would be through the VA's office, sir.
I would not. I have
Does the
no idea.
VA's office have any? So I thought you chaired the technology committee?
I chair the technology committee. However, if the superintendent or the business office decides that they would want to purchase thumb drives or disk drives or any other drives, that would be under their purview.
Wouldn't they do such a thing at the request of the technology committee?
Not
Not at all.
necessarily, sir. So
Not
I would
necessarily.
again suggest that you direct that question to the VA.
All right, well, how can I do that? Mr. Jacobus, I assume?
I wasn't,
You weren't here.
I wasn't the business administrator.
So who
Mr.
was
Jacobus, Mr. Jacobus, would you please look into that? And would you get an answer from Mr. Mattingly, please?
I'd appreciate that. Who was the BA administrator at the time?
I don't know, sir. I don't know. I don't have that voice in front of me. So
It was Mr. Veza. I can tell you because I overheard it.
Okay.
I just was wondering if you
I believe you.
Okay. Let's see. You had said a few meetings ago that you would consider, as a board, turning on the cable stations again and recording these meetings. Have you made a determination?
Not yet, sir.
Not yet. Can you tell me when you might meet over that?
We need to meet with that. We would meet with the technology committee and the full board, and then we'll make a decision.
So then you will schedule a meeting and do that maybe by the next meeting?
I don't know if it'll be by the next meeting, so I won't make any promises. I can't hear that.
Okay. You know, at this point, with the months and months that I've been coming here and bringing things that I offer to your attention, and the seriousness with so much of it, I would hope that moving forward, that now that we have Mr. Egan, I believe, yes, thank you very, very much. Thank you very much. You have no idea. Your prayer answered. I'd just like to say that. But my hope is, Mr. Rivera, that we will have transparency, full transparency, and cooperation, and that the lawsuits that are hanging over the head, the unfunded, unknown liability of these lawsuits will be settled as quickly and as easily as possible, that we can, you know, just come to a conclusion, understand the impact, and move on with it, because I understand we're very much in the red, and it's going to require more money just to pay this year's bills. It states right here on the budget that we are broke, and we're not done with the school year, and everybody's supplies and everything's frozen. There seems to be no money for anything. And being $3.8 million in the red, it blows my mind that that's where we're at. that there's no teaching aids, that there's no supplies available, no school trips, all the things that are usual and customary, like making reports to the auditor, and taking account and being careful whom we purchase from, will be taken into careful consideration. And if it warrants an investigation, because I do believe Moran's printing is a direct violation and conflict to a sitting board member, and that, I believe, requires an investigation. And I'm hoping that this is where we're going to get, that the public is going to finally get some answers to the questions that we've been begging for almost a year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Senator Martinez, please come to the podium. State your name, address, and group affiliation if appropriate, sir.
Santos Martinez, 297 Belleville Avenue. Am I correct to understand there's no clock?
Yep.
No clock?
I'm not talking about it.
Okay.
Go on as long as you like.
So just so I understand, how's the process? Is it the clock engaged as soon as you call my name, or when I get here make an announcement that I'm here? Because I always run out of time and I don't know how.
You don't know how?
No.
Come on, Santos, we know each other a long time.
I understand.
You can talk, brother. The clock engages once you give your name and your address, sir.
Okay, so I just want to be clear. Okay.
But we don't have one tonight, so you go
Great.
ahead.
So I know I brought up in the last meeting about the report card. When are we going to be able to have explanations on the website for report cards?
The explanation was written, and it will be being reviewed by the board committee, curriculum committee, and then it will be put on the website, hopefully by next week.
Beautiful, thank you.
You're
But
welcome.
my question wasn't answered. Is this Belleville's idea, or is this a state mandate, the format of this report card?
The state has several aspects of the report card that must be included. So what you have is some parts of Belleville. The parts that I find most difficult to understand are the ones from the state. So that's why we're offering the explanation.
Because I have my daughter's report card with me, and like I said, I like to brag that I'm an intelligent man, so I'm trying to make I'm trying to have an understanding of some of these categories. So like, under literature for language arts, determine meaning of grade level content area words. Huh? Analyze multiple accounts of the same event or topic. Huh? Integrate information from several texts on the same topic to write or speak about. Huh? This is what I'm talking about. So I'm an intelligent man, okay? So imagine the parents who don't even know English. And I'm not an advocate for them, because they should know English too. So please understand that. Okay, but my point is that we need to simplify this, please. So I would appreciate that. Thank you for your action on that. Then, I guess because I was a little emotional, I thought it was a little callous on the board's part to deduct time from me while I was trying to hold my composure in discussing my feelings on one of my young little baby girls that passed away, that was very dear to me. I thought that the clock should have stopped and then engaged when I was ready to talk again, okay? And I think that the explanation I received on the moment of silence was very vague. And I'm gonna ask you for a moment of honesty. And if it was someone you knew, and someone you cared, be honest with me, please. I have a lot of respect for you for doing this right now. Would that be acceptable to you, the moment of silence you gave? That it was so vague and general, it could apply for dead birds or anything. I wanted it to be specifically to say, let us have a moment of silence for Rosa Nagayan.
And I understand that, Mr. Santos, and I'm going to be totally honest with you, okay? We opened up with a moment of silent thought and reflection. It was for whatever anyone in the audience may have wanted to use that moment of silent thought and reflection for. However, had you brought that information to me, if you brought it to me today, we could have specifically. I didn't think of it that day. I know some of our board members did go to the young lady's wake. I, however, did not. Wasn't able to make it there, and therefore it was not in the forefront of my mind, and I apologize for that. And I'm sorry, it was a couple of weeks prior to that meeting, to last week's meeting. You know, so you have to remember, you know, you always...
I understand, there's a lot of information flying around, I get it.
Now, if you had approached me and said, Mr. Rivera, I don't know if you really, but I would really appreciate that, I would have no problem with that. And, you know, as you can see, even the board members who were able to attend, you know, even the ones that were able to attend, because of there's so much going on at the time, didn't always have, you know, didn't have that.
Oh, because I'm a
And I
reasonable guy.
apologize, and it is a deep
Because
loss.
I'm a reasonable
It's
guy,
a
I
deep
said that,
loss
but you
for
guys
us.
should have known that. Should have known.
I'm not saying that we didn't know it, sir.
Okay.
I'm saying it was 2 weeks before that meeting.
I got you.
You have to remember, there's a lot of things going on.
I appreciate
and
it.
we don't always remember it.
So can we have a moment of silence for Rosa and the guy right now, please?
If you would like to do that
I
right
would,
now,
it would be very meaningful to me.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to take a moment of silent thought and reflection to remember this young lady.
Thank you, everyone. Okay, next topic. Bus stop behavior. I asked a couple of weeks ago to address, there's a little bit of an issue going on at the different bus stops. In particular, the one on Newark Avenue, I think it's called Franklin, no, what is it called? Vet Stop, something like that. It's right on Newark Avenue. Ambets, there you go, Ambet, thank you. The crossing guard who's there is increasingly frustrated with the behavior of the students that are there. I think they need to be held accountable for their actions. First of all, they're bringing baseballs and footballs and throwing it around. They have no respect for any of the residents there's property. There is a business office right there in the corner, medical office. They trample, they cut up the grass, they run all over it. The lady comes out screaming at them. They have no respect, they laugh, they carry on. That crossing guard is like a mother out there, and I really appreciate her. And I love that she's in that spot. She's in the perfect spot. So I think that we need to, I think we need to hold these students that are accountable. Now, Mrs. Cavallo is a very no-nonsense principal, so I'm sure if you put this in her lap with any of her other responsibilities, she'll address it accordingly. Because these students need to be aware that they need to be careful. Let's be proactive and not reactive. I can see a football rolling in the street, kid running after it, getting hit by a car. And there's going to be a kid I know, and I will be heartbroken. So please. Park results. When will we get the park results? Like, so we know what course of action that the board is going to take, from the samples that we took a couple of weeks ago.
When they have them ready.
So there's no timetable on that?
We have nothing. They've made some kind of delays because there were certain districts that weren't able to complete it, and then they opened it to some other districts to be able to, still.
Yeah, because I was on the website, I saw different states were involved, and everybody had their own problems. Like, we don't even know where we measured up in regards to technology or nothing, huh? Why are we having the meeting here? There's an event at the...
Yes, and I would hope everybody, if they have a chance to attend, try to attend both events, that would be fantastic. But there's an event...
It's like, because part of the problem is when we're in a tight area like this, it raises up everyone's angst, and, you're going to feel the brunt of it. I mean, they're upset as it is, but, I get it, but, let's be a little bit...
I understand, but, the students need to, do their extracurricular activities, and this is where the meeting was held on a regular basis prior to that, so that's why we decided to hold.
So my question is, I'm not sure if I missed it or it was addressed to Mr. Egan. So how long will you be here assisting with the financial process?
It's 9 o'clock and we're paying them now, so.
I'll be here until the problem is solved.
So the problem is solved? Okay. Will we be the public or us taxpayers be privy to a report from you on your findings or resolutions? Or do they just get fixed and move on?
I won't be preparing a formal report, but I am prepared monthly to give status reports.
Can we do that? That would be great. That would be great. Okay. Beautiful. Thank you. And then I didn't go over the audit report. I wasn't able to go through it. There was so much detail in there, but I wasn't able to go over it entirely. But a lot of the transgressions on there are basic accounting principles that were basic fundamentals 101 that should have been followed. And on the different procedures that should have been, there was no protocol set, or maybe they didn't know the protocol, whether the people were untrained. And I don't mean to beat up Mr. D'Elia, but like, maybe he wasn't asked for this information, but he should have this information readily available. There should be paperwork, because I worked in management and I worked in the accounting office, and there should be paperwork readily available, reports, where the money came from, what day, what event, what it is, and have all of this information. I mean,
He's shaking his head yes, but I mean, if you're asking him to pull something out from 4 years ago, do you expect him to remember?
it doesn't matter.
If I asked you where you were on
If
this
the
thing 4
IRS
years
came
ago, would
today,
you remember?
if the IRS came today, would that be sufficient for them?
No, but they would give you time to go back and get the documentation
They'd
and
be
bring it forward.
little
wouldn't
time,
it?
little bit of time.
Whatever
Because
time
you're
it
supposed to have that
takes, they
already.
tell you to do that. And I'm sure if in response to that, if we needed to get that out, if somebody wants to Oprah it, you can Oprah that information.
No, I'm
and they can
sure,
pull
but
that information out.
it is
That information
showing
is
his management.
available.
We need to coordinate and get this better. We gotta get
We're
this
not-
more organized in the office.
I couldn't expect Mr. D'Elia to.
And it's not on
Remember
him.
something?
He's running a department. He's handing it over to the bookkeeping department.
You're asking, so,
Excuse me,
and if you're asking Mr. D'Elia for the information, why would he have it if the bookkeeping department has it?
I'm not asking. So I said I'm not beating him up. I'm saying that this
if I may
information.
interrupt, may I interrupt for
Sure.
a moment? I've heard many questions from the prior speaker, what you're saying too. And they're all valid questions, and I can, understand the concern. What my purpose here is, and what I'm going to be focusing on, is going forward. One of my tasks is to correct every one of those findings that was in the audit report, so they're not repeated again. Which by extension, it would mean to improve,
That's what we want.
the record keeping. In this particular situation regarding the athletic account, the records were here, and there was a lack of communication, somebody dropped the ball, whatever it was, it didn't make it in a timely fashion to the auditor. So the auditor was obligated to put that in his report. Should it have been there? Should something been done different to someone just picking up the phone and calling the athletic director? Probably. But the point is, I'm not going to, I don't want to say waste my time, but devote a lot of time to go back to see why something failed in the past. I'm just going to go forward and say, this is the way we're going to do it, and this is what we have to do it, and we're going to do it correctly.
Correct, but let me ask you this then, so since your experience in this practice of, fixing, budget offices or whatever the arrangement is, so my question to you is this then, typically, I know from working in a corporate office and working in a corporate environment, that when there is an audit report that has been issued, and it was 32, 34 transgressions, there's a rebuttal to that. And we have to show quick action that we're gonna fix that, and there's an answer to it. It's not just like, oops, I spilled the milk, it's okay. No, there is $500,000 missing. We need to know where the $500,000 is. In any corporation, that is what is done, okay? You don't just say, oops, and it's forgiven. You have to find the $500,000 that's missing.
Mr. Egan, just to clarify.
We're not talking about money missing.
There's money missing?
No, I'm not implying that.
Okay.
I'm not implying that. But I'm saying, when there's things wrong, if there's money transferred incorrectly or whatever the case may have been, okay, that still needs to be accounted for. Am I correct?
I totally agree with you.
Okay.
You're absolutely correct. And the process should have been upon the issuance of the audit report. The district, by regulation, is required to come up with a corrective action plan, which means just to answer all those findings and document how they're going to fix them. And
if I'm not mistaken, I think a corrective action plan was drafted.
Oh, was it? Yeah, because I don't know if it's readily available. Okay, because that's the thing though. We're all waiting. There's 32 things wrong, and only the athletic department came out and said, here's my problem, I fixed it, and this is what it is.
But just to continue with it, is that you have the 30-some-odd findings, and with like 6 weeks away from the end of the year, the auditors will come in again.
Oh, they are? For follow-up?
No, the auditors come in every year. Every year, they prepare what they call the CAFR, which is the
So with 32
annual-
errors, they don't come back for follow-up to make sure that we're on the right path after 3 months or 4 months? That's what I've seen done.
That's what I've done in previous districts. I don't know if that was done here, I only got here.
That's what, see what I'm saying, that's what
No,
I'm
but I
looking
will
for.
find out that, and I will, well, my task is to deal with and solve those problems.
Okay.
And I'd just like to add one other thing that you should know. When you refer to the Internal Revenue Service, I'm a former special agent with the Treasury Department. I worked in the criminal division to go after people for committing income tax evasion and
Right.
other things. So we give them a little bit more time.
A little.
We give them a lot more time.
A little. Right, okay. I appreciate it, thank you very much.
Mr. Rivera, just to address one of Mr. Martinez's questions about holding the meetings elsewhere. I remember during my presidency, we were going to do traveling meetings to different schools, and the issue is we're under strict laws with handicap accessibility, and the high school is handicap accessible, and I believe also number 3 or 9.
Three.
I'm not sure, 3.
Right.
And there's no place in number 3 to hold a meeting, so that's why we are restricted to high school, and if there's an event going on, we're restricted to the cafeteria.
You say number 3 and the high school are the most handicap compliant buildings that we have, and because of the restriction of the space in number 3, there's no place to hold the meeting there. That's why we hold the meetings here at the high school.
Having been the liaison to number 3 for a long time, I mean, accessing the gym, from number 3 is also going to be problematic because we do have one narrow pathway going into that playground, and that's where you would have to park.
Well, that's something that we'll discuss, and we'll see if we can find an answer to, if we need to hold it in another space, we'll hold it in another space. And then we'll have issues with notification of that. So, I mean, we'll take care of it, we'll figure out what we can do to hold it in the larger space if it's appropriate. Moving on, Mr. Mignon. Mike Mignon, please come.
Mr. President, can I interrupt you 1 second?
Sure.
Correct me if I'm wrong also, Mr. Jacobus, but a corrective action plan was developed by the administration, presented to the board, and presented to the county Department Board of Education, and Mr. Jacobus and administration been having repeated meetings since March 27th, correct me if I'm wrong, on that date, but regarding not only the budget, but that corrective action plan. So.
Mr. Mignon.
Mike Mignon, 23 Westville Avenue, Caldwell. Proud, I say that strongly, proud president of the Belleville Education Association. First off, I want to thank you again, Mr. Egan. I know everyone's welcomed you, but we need you here, and we're thankful that you're here, and we have a lot of confidence that you're going to do what it takes to provide our students with a quality education, which we have been stressing since the beginning of this year, and we have to no avail been answered with. Okay, so we thank you very much. I also hope that you can see now by this sudden schedule change, the frustration that the public and employees and people like myself have with the constant struggle with our Board of Education, and when we can schedule a meeting for 7, now it's 6, back to 7. So just some of the many frustrations we go through. Just an example. All right. First things first. I didn't come here prepared with anything. I'm glad that we have an open mic, but I do think it's about time that this board becomes transparent and that we just come clean. Mr. Zangari, we have to come clean. We cannot continue to make excuses for the things that are happening in this board, because that only means that we will continue to make the same mistakes. So we have the presence of Mr. Egan here, which is great. Now it's time to fess up, admit where our mistakes are, and correct them. We're all adults here. Okay, we all have that responsibility to those people who voted you into office. And I think it's even more frustrating to stand up here and to listen to the excuses and well, it's not him, the blame game. but we're constantly, using the blame game. It was this BA, it was that BA. Listen, it's not inherited. It's what we're dealing with now. It's about time we fix it. And I think that everyone here would agree that it's about time we fix these problems. All right, as I walked in, Mr. D'Elia was giving a presentation on athletics, and I just have a question for him, being the stand-up guy that he said he is. The varsity base, he said that uniforms, and I'm talking to Mr. D'Elia through you.
You asked me to go through the
Yeah.
chair, speak to Mr. D'Elia, by all means, sir, go ahead.
Thank you. You spoke about uniforms being paid off by the skate money. I used to coach for 11 years in this district, baseball, okay, varsity level, freshman level. This year, unfortunately, I'm not. But I do know from my experience that we were tagging and selling clothing to pay for our new varsity uniforms. So you're saying that gate money is paying for new uniforms, and I'm wondering what uniforms. We also tagged and we also sold clothing to pay for our barbecue. It used to be a dinner, now it's a barbecue. So I'm just, again, I'm just looking for everyone here. It's about time we start coming clean on things. Let's not make excuses for stuff if we have problems.
Mr. D'Elia gave a specific example. He said if the cheerleaders were raising money and they needed $3,000 and they raised $2,000 and the parents couldn't raise any more money, he would make up the difference.
Perhaps that wasn't the case when you were coaching, sir, I don't know. But
yeah, no, it was. It was, well, I coached here 11 years, so it started that the Board of Education would supply uniforms, and then it went to all of a sudden it's tagging and fundraising and, you pay this, I'll pay that kind of stuff. Even our cage, we contributed to our cage also. We raised funds for the cage that's in School 4, correct? School 4 or 5? I wasn't aware that you raised any funds. Okay, so again, like I said, it's all a matter of coming clean and starting off new, starting off on a fresh foot. All right, I really came here to speak about the new assessments, state assessments that we have. I was wondering if the state is aware of the possible security breach that we have going on with state assessments now, that we have these state-of-the-art cameras that can actually zoom down on the individual questions that are on that exam. Now, we're not allowed to look at those exams, we're not allowed to write anything down about those exams. Those exams are completely confidential, yet we have high-tech surveillance system that I've seen that can pinpoint and read those questions straight from the paper. So I'm wondering if the state is aware that we have these cameras, that these cameras are on, that they were on during the entire testing process. Do they know about this?
Does the state know that we have cameras? Absolutely.
Do they know that these cameras can actually take pictures of these questions? And do they know that this is a possible
I'm not
security
sure
breach?
that your assessment is that correct. It may be
I've seen
possible,
it.
it may be not. And if that is so, I mean, the state understands and knows what we have. I'm sure that there's been enough reports to the state concerning the cameras that we have, and we have yet to be questioned by the state.
But I know that you have to fill out some type of report in case there's a breach of security, correct, on the actual testing.
Well,
So do we fill out any
if
reports
there's
on
some
that?
sort of, you're stating that our cameras are breached, sir. If you would like to report that as a breach of security, is that what you're saying?
No, not myself.
I'm asking you,
Administration should be doing
I'm
that.
not sure that would be considered a breach of security since all the data that is collected is secured. So.
All the data that's collected
All
from
the cameras are recording, and that information is secured. So,
But
for a breach of security, I would assume that would be an outside breach, sir. If somebody broke in and stole the test so they can give the rest of the kids the answers. I don't know where you're going with that, sir.
No, where I'm going with it is that
It's certainly a legal question, and I would defer to our attorney for that, and we will bring that up at the next meeting.
It's a question that needs to be addressed because, I mean, again, if the state wants to see the validity of the testing, we have to know whether there was any security breaches. And I'm sure, this was well thought out, this surveillance system, so I'm sure that was something that must have been thought out in the pre-installation part of this. Okay, so that'd be great if you could find that answer, that'd be wonderful. All right, and lastly, what I would like to do is I would like to address, again, I don't know if Mr. Egan, you would deal with this, but I was wondering if it was at all possible that we could continue to communicate with our superintendent on the needs of our association. Okay, I've been trying to get an appointment, I stopped. I'll be honest, I stopped. I got a couple canceled appointments, and that was it. I figured, I wrote a variety of letters on the fact that our new contractual salary guides were never posted with the state, so therefore our retirees are not being paid properly. I wrote email after email, and actually now UNICEF has that, and there's just no communication whatsoever. So I think now, if we're starting off on a new foot, Ms. Feldman, I think that this would be wonderful if we could just continue our weekly conversations.
Are they going to continue between you and I? Are they going to continue being recorded over and over, and you, for whatever reasons, you decided to record every meeting?
For the truth.
The truth?
That's it, we just want the truth.
Well, then, if you're going to record meetings, I'm not going to have meetings with you. That's the way it is.
Recording everything. All right, well, transparent.
These were recorded meetings without my knowledge. That is inappropriate.
Very untrue. It's untrue, but, okay, so recorded with your knowledge. So I'll say yes, they'll be recorded, so we're fine, we can have a meeting next week. So not even with or without your knowledge anymore. Okay, so we're looking at transparency, Ms. Feldman, and we're just not getting it.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mignon, your question was about the
weekly
retired
meeting.
teachers not getting...
No, there's quite a few issues. We have many issues, but I've emailed Ms. Feldman in a variety of different ways, through the DA, to herself, CC'd everybody that I could possibly think of, and we're not getting any answers. And our membership has lots and lots and lots of issues. They're piling up, and we have no answers to them. We have someone who's looking for, who wants some questions answered on disability. We haven't gotten that addressed yet. And so therefore, that will never get addressed without us having our weekly meeting that we've always had. And I'm sorry, Ms. Feldman, I apologize to the depths of my heart that we have to record these, but I'm sorry they have to be recorded, because either that or I'm going to probably wind up thinking that I am some kind of cuckoo, because, you know, I hear things and all of a sudden those things don't come to fruition. So if they're taped, at least I can play it back, you know, in my rubber room, and, you know.
Mr. Mignon, may I ask you, when I asked you if we could share your tape so that we would both have the same exact recording to listen to, you told me absolutely not, and I had to call a secretary in. So whose truth are we looking for? If you would like to have taped meetings, and we share the tape, well, we have 2 tape recorders running simultaneously, I am more than welcome you to have the meeting. But if you are to have the tape, and you are to say that I can't use it, then it doesn't appear to me that we're looking for the same truth, are we?
Mr. Jacobus, is it in our budget to buy a Radio Shack recorder for...
Mr. Mignon, that's inappropriate. Again, you need to come through me before you go.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Rivera, can I ask Mr. Jacobus?
Not at this time.
All right. So anyway, Ms. Feldman, I will absolutely make another phone call to your secretary, see if you schedule a date. If you can get a hold of a recorder, that'd be great. I have no problem. I tell the truth. What I say, I say. And if I say it, I said it, and that's it. I'm good with that. So I'm not afraid of being recorded. So if you would like, you know, to buy your own, that'd be great. Birthday coming around the corner or anything?
Mr. Mignon, that's inappropriate, sir.
What's inappropriate? I'm sorry.
Birthday coming around, sir?
Yeah, if there's a
I
birthday,
think that's an
birthday
inappropriate
present.
comment, sir. Just please keep...
Oh, I'm very sorry. I didn't mean that to be
I think that's an
inappropriate.
inappropriate comment.
No, I didn't mean it to be inappropriate.
Well, I think it was, so I was just looking at it.
Oh, I didn't see that as inappropriate.
Please finish.
All right, I'll end on this. I know that we're talking about a long-range goal of being fiscally healthy, and I'm just wondering if this board has in the plans
of a short-term range of being mentally healthy, because we have had it here at the.
Thank you, Mr. Mignon.
Thank you.
Mr. President, Tony, please come to the podium, state your name, address, and affiliation with the program.
Good evening, board members, administrators, and especially you, Mr. Egan.
Mr. President, Tony, for the record, please state your name and your address.
Vincent Frank Antoni, 129 Mount Prospect Avenue,
Thank you,
Belleville.
sir.
Mr. Egan, your presence tonight has already made a difference. The clock disappeared. We were allowed to get up here for just 5 minutes, ask questions. We never got answers to our questions. From the 5 minutes up, we're rudely cut off in the middle of a sentence. In the middle of a sentence. So I just want you to know that already you've made a difference in our meetings, and I thank you for that.
Can I also take credit then for the $150,000 technology?
Thank you for that.
They don't know that you're really on that.
Although I've been coming to Board of Education meetings for 35 years and council meetings for 46 years, and I'm one of those guys that acknowledges that $150,000 was my money and these people's money.
Yeah.
And at many rallies, I still have that pair of pants. I had all the pockets turned inside out, and I'd show people when they say, oh, it's state money, oh, it's federal money. This was marked local money, this was county money, this was state, and this was federal. But all those pockets were in the same pair of pants. So when we hear all this bragging about, oh, we got state money, it's my money, and it's these people's money. So let's spend it.
We finally got back.
Well, I just want you to know,
I
it's all our
understand
money. I want to thank Mr. D'Elia. I know him a long time. He went to school with my son. I know his family. That was an excellent presentation. But as previous speakers mentioned, what was missing was the details. So I heard that what I can do tomorrow, I can Oprah, and I'll receive the last 4 years. There's 2 parts to every budget, revenue and expenditures. So that will be available to an Oprah request for the last 4 years, so we know every penny was taken in from what those charts that were filled out after each game, according to that procedure. They're mandatory, as Mr. D'Elia said. So that should be available. So we should know where every game, what was produced as revenue from each game, and we should also know where every penny was spent. Is that what I understand?
That was my understanding.
All right.
Could we ask Mr. D'Elia what the spreadsheet looks like? Just if you want to elaborate.
Again, the high school accounts, there's one big, my understanding is there's one big massive high school account. Each organization, key club, boys soccer, girls soccer, whomever, it's broken apart. So that one massive fund or one massive bank account has several funds, several areas earmarked for that money. That's what you'll see is if you ask for the athletic gate receipts or the athletic department's account, you'll see every gate that came in and every check that went out.
So and to each check that went out will be an explanation of what it was spent on.
Yes, utilizing that form. That I presented earlier.
All right, we'll see if we get that. I heard tonight a couple of times that there was no missing money. According to your own budget summary that you gave us last meeting, there's a deficit of $2.5 million. I'm a businessman. If there's a deficit, that's missing money. And according to this, it says the state is making us raise it in this year's budget. So that money is missing. and there's quite a few, you weren't here, Mr. Hagan, but myself and other people kept asking through the year on various issues. The main one was this Clarity contract. Where was the money for the Clarity contract? Now, I'm a former elected official too. I know when I vote on something, on the top of the resolution, one was factual contents, according to the accountant, and the other side was legal, according to the attorney. So, if they approved this, and we have asked at meetings, where was the money? Because last year, I spoke, others spoke at the budget hearing. Last year's budget, when it was introduced and passed, had no money for this. The Clarity contract wasn't even thought of back then. In the middle of the year, we hired them. So there is missing money, $2.5 million. And once again, because we don't have the clock, I'll ask, where did the money come from? And where is Clarity, whatever monies they received, what account did it come from?
I think I tried to clear that up at the last budget meeting. In the budget, in Fund 12, which would be a place where leases would be placed for expenditures, that would be leases for buses, there was a lease for roofing repairs, there was a lease for technology. And last meeting, there was a statement that, there was no budget for that. There was money budgeted for a technology security increase. However, the amount of money that was budgeted was not enough to cover the full amount of the bid that was accepted by the board. And I think the difference was, I think I said it last time, in the neighborhood of leases of about $89,000 overall for all leases. So what was the projection of the bid? I believe started at 1.2 million. That was early on. I first arrived and was trying to help Mr. Vezza with the budget, which was in March. And at that time, we were told that there was going to be some bid on security. So we put an amount of money in for lease, but it didn't cover lease because, as you know, the bid that was accepted was higher than the 1.2 originally budgeted.
So there was missing money.
No, well, it's not missing money. I mean, I just want to clarify.
You're not going to win that one.
Well, I just want to say, when you say the 2.5 missing, it's money that was expended on either special education or salaries above the budget. So it wasn't missing. It's not in somebody's pocket. It's over expenditures.
Well, okay, over expenditure. Well, you just acknowledged that the Clarity contract, there was 89, or 88 or 89,000, you said?
It came
That
in
was
higher.
not sufficient to pay for it?
Right.
Well, then I wouldn't approve the contract if I didn't have the money to pay for it. And the other question was asked, the other question repeatedly asked, maybe with Mr. Egan here, we'll get an answer tonight. Did you go out to bid for this technology and security system contract? And how many bids were received? Where was it advertised if you bid?
Mr. Mayor, I was on the committee.
Absolutely.
The bid went out. There was 4 companies that picked up the packet. There was 1 bid returned. It was accepted by the business administrator. It was sealed and opened by, I believe, Mr. Fasella. And we accepted the bid. Now, the bid was returned, I want to get my dates right here, I believe May. I think May 1st the bid came back and we did not act on it until July. So certainly we took 2 months to take the contract to board and discuss it. And I think some of the misperception in this is, and from what I understand or from what I hear, the New Jersey Department of Fiscal Accountability is actually going to look into this. And I am certainly happy about that because there's been so much scrutiny over this contract, and and certainly a lot of misinformation because it's not a security contract. It's much more comprehensive than that. And it took us 2 months to mull over the contract, certainly look into a lot of the legal aspects of it. So when everybody says we rushed it, I mean, it took 2 months and had committee meetings probably 3-4 times a week. So the bid process was followed, and that's your answer.
Well, you know, Mr. Fasella is the supervisor of maintenance, correct?
Buildings and grounds.
Buildings and grounds. Why would he open the technology bid? I mean, isn't that the duty of the superintendent and an attorney? I mean, I've seen on the council chamber, it's an attorney present, and usually the mayor or council people. Why would the supervisor?
Certainly, maybe the attorney was present. I'm not sure. That's a question for the attorney when he comes back, but I will
Mr.
tell you
Fasella
that.
is the person in charge of grounds. As you know, they were pulling cable, they were installing cameras. He is in charge of buildings and grounds. That's why he probably would have been the person.
Servers in every school, they pulled Cat 6 cable into every classroom from the middle school down.
Which is a facilities issue.
Well, in my humble opinion, and like I said, I've been doing this for over 40 years, that's his job to oversee the contract, the implementation of the contract once it's approved by the board, but that should never have been opened. He has no authority to open a bid as the maintenance guy.
It comes in as a sealed bid. They're in the office together, and they open the envelope, Mr. Frantantoni. Mr. Fasella was the one that opened the envelope.
Well, he's not. They're supposed to be open.
Is there a significant?
Let's defer that question for when the people are here that actually were in the room and who knew the process.
Well, I'm telling you, number one, I believe the board president should have been present, superintendent, and certainly the attorney. And Mr. Fasella would only see that the contract was executed properly as far as installing the stuff and the thing. But he's got no power to open a bid.
Well, let's get clarification on who actually opened the bid package.
Well, you stated, you said that Mr. Fasella opened the bid
I
package.
said, I believe Mr. Fasella opened it. I wasn't. Play it back. We got the meeting. It's on tape. Play it back. We went out, I believe, on May 1st. When the bids came back, it was 2 months before we accepted that contract. It was never challenged. It was never questioned until installation. Facts.
Oh, wait a minute.
And the New Jersey Department of Fiscal Accountability, are they going to look into that contract, do you know? They are going to look into that contract, and I can't wait.
Just to end this discussion on the contract, it certainly was challenged and discussed at this microphone by many citizens. So don't say nobody didn't discuss the contract or oppose it or question it. It was done many, many times by the citizens of this good town. The other thing I want to address in regards to Mr. Delia's presentation, the flea market, I didn't get the actual, he said he doesn't collect the money from the flea market. And I forget what department does?
I believe it's the Athletic Advisory Council.
The Athletic Advisory Council. What is the procedure for reporting the income, and who do they turn the money over to? And who chairs the Athletic Advisory
Well,
Council?
that question was answered already, and I believe the Athletic Advisory Council is a 501c3. I believe they're a 501c3. I don't know if Al DeMayo here.
I think we have to wait to comment on that until we speak to, it's a board-appointed county advisory council, and I'd rather have the attorney present before we release any information. So unfortunately, Mr. Frantantoni, that question may have to wait until the next meeting.
All right, so can you duly note the question?
Absolutely.
So we can have an answer at the next meeting?
Absolutely.
We'd like to know who takes in that money and all the expenditures that were paid from that.
Well, I mean, now you're requesting a lot of information, so are you asking for a presentation, or would you like to over the information, sir?
It's the same two questions pertain to any budget. How much money come in and how much went out?
We
Where
will
did it
consult
go?
with the attorney and we'll get back to you, sir.
And finally, another gentleman brought up the report cards. I have 2 grandchildren in Bloomfield, and we showed their report cards the other day, and they're very simple. They're not as complicated as this. So I don't know if you said the state mandate or state mandates to put certain things in. But they were very simple to read report cards in the Bloomfield Elementary schools. I don't have children at this point here, so I don't know, but by what he's talking about, that's nothing that was on my grandchildren's report cards in Bloomfield. And finally, all these lawsuits that we are we paying them? Because Mr. Zangari said that, with regards to his deficit, we have a lot of lawsuits. Are we insured? Are any of these lawsuits being paid by insurance?
Mr. Frantoni, that's a legal question, and we won't discuss legal matters in public without the attorney.
I don't think that's a legal
present.
That's not, I'm not asking for details. I'm asking where the
again,
money
Mr.
is coming from.
Frantoni, you're asking a question about the legal process.
No, I'm not. I'm asking where is the funding going to be paid for?
Mr. Frantoni,
We
if
the
you're asking if
taxpayers
the
insurance.
district is insured, the answer is yes.
And those,
If you're asking who's paying for the lawsuits, Mr. Frantoni, that is a legal question, and you would have to, and I'd have to have clearance, clarity from the attorney.
and finally, how do we hire a vice principal for $150,000? A gentleman who's been
Mr.
retired for
Frantoni,
many
you know I will
years.
not discuss personnel.
Well, I'm going to put the question forth, and you don't have to answer me. He's been retired, and we bypass all our in-house educators.
And your group affiliation, sir.
Michael Iamino, Newark Teachers Union, Executive Board Member.
Your address, sir?
I'm sorry?
Your address?
Currently, 91 Warren Street, Nutley, New Jersey, and I apologize for my behind. I think that I can probably answer a lot of the questions that are being asked tonight because, unfortunately, in Newark, we are experts at state monitoring and state occupation. You mentioned the report cards. We are controlled by the state. The state requires nothing on our report cards. It takes me about 25 minutes to do all 5 of my classes' report cards. I've spoken to some of the teachers in Belleville, and sometimes it takes them days to complete the report cards. There is no requirement, other than the fact that you do have a report card and that they are, unfortunately, apparently not, legible and understandable by the parents. So you might want to look into that. Ease of reporting is much more important than depth of reporting, because you can always schedule conversations. The other thing that I think it's important to talk about, and as a history teacher, I think it's important that Belleville is very much aware of what's going on. You're excited about having the state come, and I can tell you that for the last 15 years of state monitoring and occupation in Newark, it did not go the way that we wanted. No disrespect, Mr. Egan, but I think it's important that you, as the population of this town and as members, you are very aware of what's going on. I'm going to talk about a pattern that you will see that occurred in Newark. And as I'm repeating this pattern, you'll nod your heads. Has this district choked resources to the teachers? Yes. Forcing them to operate their classrooms at bare minimum budgets, dipping into their own pockets, and struggling?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Good. Has the administration of this district attacked the teachers and the union?
Yes.
Okay, good. Has staff been reassigned?
Sir, you'll address your questions to me. I'm the chair here.
Has staff been reassigned in this district to confusing the numbers?
Yes.
Good. Has the district, amazingly enough, found money to improve technology?
Yes.
Good. Has the district recently perhaps moved massive amounts of students to the question of parents to new locations?
Yes.
Good. These are all things that occurred in Newark in the last administration, the last 2 administrations, in fact. This is the pattern that precludes the ultimate change. And the fact that you currently have a budget deficit will make the final straw break the camel's back. What winds up happening is you will not find much wrong with the budget. You won't. You won't, Mr. Rivera, find much wrong with the budget. What you will find is a lot more money that's needed to run the district. And that, again, will lead to massive cuts and layoffs. You have already moved students out of buildings, and at some point you're going to decide that maybe cutting the ties with the school entirely will be in the best interest of the district, which is the #1 recommendation by state-occupied districts. That building vacant will become a real estate possibility. That's when the charter word will be thrown around. And I know we shake our heads now, Dr. Feldman, but you know that it will. Let me draw a pattern for you, Dr. Feldman.
Again,
Mr. Rivera, I would like to draw a pattern for you.
Thank you.
Dr. Feldman, listen.
Mr. Iovino,
I got you.
you're very cute.
I mean,
We take directions, by the way.
Charters are a great solution to districts' budget problems by numbers. They operate at 85% less cost, and they have to make up the 15% from outside sources. This brings in the outside corporate money, which districts love, which Mr. Yannuzzi will love, which many of you will love. But I can tell you that ultimately, it drains resources from the public education, it drains resources from the special education students, and it drains resources on the town. And it continues to siphon them. So charters do not become the answer. More importantly, we know that they do not outperform publics. Why is this important to discuss now? I'm going to bring in some political stuff, but it involves education. Trust me, I swear, Mr. Rivera.
You know which way I'll go with you.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. There's an irony. The Longo Frida Burke campaign received some support from Anibal Ramos from Newark. Why would Anibal Ramos from Newark support the campaign of Longo Frida Burke?
Mr. Iovino.
It's education. Trust me. Anibal Ramos gets his money from Steve Adubato. He ran on the Jeffries ticket. They are charter mavens.
How does that affect Belleville, sir, and what we're talking about here today?
Of course it affects Belleville.
Bring it in now, sir.
Okay. Once you start to drain the resources, once you start to attack the union, once you start to disrupt the town, then once we bring in the state's recommendation is going to be to vacate one of your schools, which you conveniently enough have already made room for by moving students around. You've already improved the technology of the school, and next thing you know, you'll probably throw around possibly funding the schools through charters. We've seen it happen.
Excuse me, can I interrupt you?
1 second.
No, I won't, because you're spreading,
Don't say that I'm not making stuff up, because you've done this.
You're making
Not pertinent to
statements
Belleville.
that are not pertinent to Belleville.
Not yet.
Listen, Newark is a different, don't compare Newark to Belleville.
Thank you.
They're different.
But clearly I've outlined how they are exactly alike.
My experience has been in Elmwood Park, Bergen Field, and Garfield.
Great.
Has been that if there's any vacant buildings, moves were made to bring back children with disabilities or special needs and to eliminate or reduce the outrageous out-of-district placement tuitions. And by doing so, all 3 districts are not only out of deficit, they have surpluses and they're pouring more money into the educational field and all positive outcomes. What you're saying here is very political, yes, number 1. Number 2, you're just coming out and stating something that's going to happen possibly to Belleville, which I don't think is going to happen.
That's wonderful.
Number 2, I will never allow it to happen as long as I'm here.
As long as you're here.
To try it.
Correct.
But please, I implore you to talk about things that's going to affect Belleville. And don't bring the history of Newark and say like this is what's going to happen to Belleville. Because that's not going to happen.
Okay, I hope that we can hold you and the board accountable for that. But it's important, obviously, that we sense a pattern and we're prepared for it. Forewarned is forearmed. Would you agree, Mr. Egan? I'm sorry, would you agree, Mr. Rivera? Forewarned is forearmed. Good.
Sir.
Then let me summarize my final point here then. You're absolutely right. I am proud to say that Belleville is not Newark. But I am scared to say that for-profit education exists in Newark. I mean, in Belleville, rather. For-profit education exists in Belleville. You have a manipulator who profits wonderfully off of this board.
Mr. Iovino,
Yes, sir.
I'm going to advise you to be very careful about what you say, because it could be, depending on what you say next, because you could end up in a lot of trouble. So, go right ahead.
That's fine. I understand that, and I appreciate your warning. All I can say, sir, is that evil
Because
exists.
you're making accusations. You are.
Yeah.
You're not naming anyone. I wish you would. But, go ahead.
I'm not intimidated, but I do appreciate it.
I'm not trying to intimidate you.
I do appreciate the warning. Once again, I'll charge this board and I'll leave this board with a wonderful quote. And again, it's not forewarned, it's forearmed. Albert Einstein once said, "Evil exists in the world, not for evil people, but for those who allow evil to exist." And that is not for them, it's for you. Sir. Thank you.
Affiliation if appropriate.
Arlene Shore, 75 Rossmore Place, here in Belleville. Good evening, Mr. Egan. Welcome. Well, in other board meetings, we have raised concerns regarding student performance levels, where student performance levels fall in regard to the state norm, in regard to the state standard. And we know that many of our elementary schools have serious issues, and within the last few years, historic issues meeting those standards. Our middle school, I believe, is what we now call a focus school. I might have the terms wrong because I retired from administration in another district many years ago, so my jargon may be a little off, and my acronyms at times might be a little off, but I'm trying my best. I find it, I'm trying to think of the right term, but perplexing perhaps, because yesterday, obviously, many people in this community focused on an election, we know that. But to many people sitting here, May 13th was an incredibly significant day, because it was New Jersey Ask. I think I've got that one straight. And during New Jersey Ask, as we know, the procedure is that in each building, certain people the roster must be submitted of those people who will be administering New Jersey Ask, proctoring New Jersey Ask, and who specifically will be responsible. And usually that tends to be the principal of the building. Interestingly enough, yesterday it was very visible to many people, and we're well aware of it. We had three, I believe I might be incorrect, there were 3 elementary principals working the polls and challenging. We had 2 vice principals who were not in the building working the polls and highly visible. There were faculty members. In fact, there were faculty members who, for those great designations of New Jersey Ask, I guess they had the contractual right to take the personal day. That normally used to be the procedure that I was aware of. I was also aware that on personal days there was some indication of sign-up. But with our low student performance performing levels historically there. How? How do we have 5 administrators? Oh yes, it's a personal day. Ultimately, as Mr. Frantantoni said, it comes out of the poor people of Belleville's pockets ultimately, and it comes out of
They
the...
are allowed to take their personal time. When
I
it's their personal time,
said
and we
it. I
discussed
said
this.
it. I
Hold
said it. Do I have my, I'm addressing you respectfully.
All right, then
You
please.
please, you may address it, but I know that there is a sign-off procedure for those days, and I'm saying, how can you do it during the New Jersey Ask? How can you possibly get a better for our students to do that? I'm not putting personal blame, because you all own it. We all own it, because we've allowed this to occur to our community, and essentially adults, the salaries are there. Oh yes, the personal days and the contracts, and I've been on both sides of the table with contracts. Where is the mention of children? Where is the mention of children for our kids? Why are our values for our property going increasingly down by square footage in this district where, Mr. Egan, I look across the river and I check the square footage because that's all part of the demographics. Real estate has a direct connection to the student performance levels of the schools. And they need the basics to do the job. And they need to be in their classrooms during critical things such as New Jersey Ask, even though we technically have the right to those personal days. The other question that I need to bring up, and yes, we do take correction action on the recommendations and the exceptions made on the audit reports. We don't do it because it's nice. We do it because it's our obligation, and we have to. And depending on what those recommendations or exceptions are in those audit reports, we have specified timelines, whether they're 30, 60, 90 days. It's just not for Belleville. It's for every district here in the state of New Jersey. And that's just the way it works. So we're not doing the state a favor. We're not doing the community a favor by addressing, we have to. All right, and one of the reasons that we have an issue, and that's why we have Mr. Egan here, because we need to make the corrections, and we have overwhelming exceptions in that report. One of the things that I need to bring to attention is that clarity has been an issue for months. I was not here at those meetings, but I certainly did watch it on YouTube. And I saw, as our board reacted, when perhaps someone in our audience did respond, not totally appropriately, but when they found out that the principal of Clarity had been a convicted felon. That was an issue. And we were concerned because we were dealing with security. After struggling with the bids, decide on a contract of close to $2 million with a convicted felon. Doesn't make sense. Now, I do have one other concern. There was a private investigation group. I believe the contract was drawn with either the name the Angelo Group or the D'Angelo Group. Now, I'm older, and sometimes I don't know the history of how some laws have changed. To the best of my knowledge, a school district cannot employ or contract, the term, and it was a contract, cannot employ a contracted private investigation agency unless it's for grounds of workman's compensation to investigate any employees. I need you to review that contract, because in January we did have certain events occur. Maybe a coincidence, but I'm not going to mention the person's name, but I'll mention that the person was a guidance counselor, and that counselor's name was in that contract with the Angelo Group. It's there, I saw it. I'm sure you can get the it was in January that that contract was drawn. Please check, I might be wrong, but the name was there. Maybe that person was involved in workman's comp, but it was strange that that person's name was there as hiring that agency to investigate that person who just happened to have been suspended. Thank you very much.
Producer Norado, please come to the podium, state your name, your address, and your group affiliation if appropriate. You bet. Nice to see you.
Nice to see everyone. I left my glasses. Oh, 1 second, because I made notes.
Take your time, the clock ain't running.
That's a good thing. I was making notes, so.
Please state your name and your address.
Patricia Norgrado, 98 Sanford Ave. It's good to see everybody up in the state. I wanted to start, and I cannot be maybe as eloquent as every speaker before me, but I think the sentiments are all there, what the community is feeling right now. My first question, or did you not, I didn't know you were going to answer questions, so I'm going to make a statement that would be a little easier. In section C, board action, board policy, I see that you're revising some policies. The one that stuck out to me was board member number and term, and board member election and appointment. Why it stuck out to me is because of recent things that have happening in town. And I would beg board members to reconsider those things. I just think it's a desperate attempt to keep control. And we all know what that's about.
Mrs. Inaugurato?
Yes.
We discussed that in private, and I will be making a motion to table those policies this evening.
Wonderful, wonderful. That's great to hear. I'm glad to hear that. So everybody knew it was a desperate attempt for control. That's what it said. Also,
You can address your name,
I know.
Norado. Thank you.
Little emotional.
I know.
Because it took me a long time to say I'm coming back here. And unfortunately, and it's breaking my heart that I have to come back here. Financially troubled, the state had to come in. $3.8 million. This would never have happened under Mr. Appleton's watch.
Yeah.
There were a few members that wanted him out. Well, you got him out. So this way you could spend away. Well, you spent away and you spent our children's futures away. You robbed this town blind. Now everyone's going to suffer. Greed and incompetence is all this was about. 3.8 million, I'm just astounded. This town has awakened and it sees. Might be a little too late. I hope 2 of these board members get some training and demand answers and get a big set up, or will I say nerve. The other 4, you must search your conscience and either resign or start thinking of these poor innocent children you're in charge of. You can't buy a pen, you can't buy a computer cartridge, you can't buy a book. That has to be a signal for somebody here. Something has to happen. It really has to happen, and we welcome the state again. And it saddens me that the state has to be here because now our property values are being in decline. Our kids are being hurt. Whether you want to see it now or 20 years from now, our property values are going to go plummeting if they didn't do it already by this newspaper article. Just give us a break.
Please come to the podium, state your name, your address, and your group affiliation if appropriate, sir.
My name is Adiola Ojo.